How are you doing this week? Thank you again so much for joining me for this episode of The Ray Warner Show. I have one quick apology to make. Last week, I think I said, or we did Chris Christie last week, and I think I said Scott Walker was next, and I would apologize if I goofed. Well, I goofed, and I apologize. It's Jim Webb who's next. Jim Webb, Democrat. We will be talking about his presidential announcement. And speaking of the presidential primary process, there was the major debate this past week. There was actually two debates because the GOP field is so large. We will go over the highlights from the upper tier. John Kerry, I've got a soundbite of him on a no-brainer question, at least what I thought was a no-brainer question. But for one reason or another, he has trouble with it. You'll hear that. Obama still talking up his little arrangement with Iran. He just can't get enough of lying about this thing, trying to misrepresent the facts to the American people, and I think went overboard even for him. And wait until you hear the FBI's new approach on dealing with the Islamic threat. This is absolutely priceless. I think this outdoes Marie Harf's wanting to bomb them with jobs. We will take a look at all of that right here, right now, on this The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. Thank you so much once again for joining me and listening in today. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, if you feel the need to rant or vent or give me some feedback for the show, feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. So, Jim Webb is next on the list, who announced for president. He announced on July 2nd, and Scott Walker announced July 13th, so I did get that wrong last week. So we're going to do Jim Webb next. Jim Webb is another Democrat trying to go against Hillary for the nomination on that side. He announced his candidacy in a blog post, even less than phoning it in if you ask me. There was no speech, no event, no media, no video, just a lengthy written statement. He did give a speech a few weeks later in Iowa, and that speech contained much of the statement that he released. So I went ahead and made use of that. Here are some of the highlights from that speech.
I appreciate the opportunity, the invitation to be here, and this is the center of where we need to change America, right here in the Democratic Party. It's been amazing to see the energy here tonight. I would like to ask those who've served our country to stand and be recognized, if we might. It's one of the great moments in my life, in my professional life, when we were able to pass the post 9/11 GI Bill. I wrote it with legislative counsel before I was sworn in the Senate. I introduced it on the first day that I was a senator. There were a lot of people who thought we would not be able to pass this, actually the most comprehensive veterans legislation since World War II. But we built a prototype, and I would like people to consider this when we're talking about those of us who would like to be your president. We built a prototype, a leadership prototype in the Senate, got a bipartisan commission, and within 16 months, over the objection of the Bush administration to the last day of our vote, we passed this bill. And since that time, more than 1 million of our post 9/11 veterans have been able to have the kind of education that Bernie Sanders just talked about. Get your tuition paid for, buy your books, pay your fees, give you a monthly stipend, and give you a true first-class shot at the future. I also was noticing when I was looking at the program tonight that on the supporters mentioned on the back page, I think about 10 of them are from organized labor. And I know there are a lot of people who are here tonight from organized labor. I'd like to say I'm very proud of the fact that I believe I'm the only statewide candidate in the history of Virginia who walked a union picket line during a campaign. Those of you who know Virginia know the risk that was involved in that. I'm also the only statewide candidate ever elected to office with a union card, 2 Purple Hearts, and 3 tattoos. And so when we see so much demonizing of organized labor these days, and when I look at what we will probably consider the most successful economic system today in the world, if you want to measure it by the balance of payment and the strength of the industries, it's Germany. Germany actually has a higher balance of trade on average than China does. And if you look at their corporate boards, they have for many, many years had organized labor as members of their corporate boards. We need to get the message out to America that organized labor is not the enemy. It is the friend of the working people. It is the voice. It is the way to start turning these economic fairness issues around. You know, we got a lot of problems. We got a lot of problems in our country. We've heard eloquent remarks tonight about those problems. And I would like to ask you to consider here tonight, what would you want in a president in order to start turning these issues around again? And I would suggest that, first of all, we should have a president who can articulate the values of the Democratic Party and work at the same time across party lines, achieving bipartisan solutions and moving the country forward in a way that we can govern. We've had it in the past. We can have it again. I believe that I can do that. Criminal justice. The president this week visited a federal prison and actually had an amnesty program for some people who had been convicted unfairly in terms of sentencing, of long sentences. I would like to say, when I ran for the Senate, I started talking about the need for this country to solve our broken criminal justice system. I had political advisors at that time who were telling me I was committing suicide, political suicide in Virginia. We stuck on those issues. We held 2 years of hearings when I got to the Senate on how to fix this system holistically. We put a piece of legislation forward. We brought, in terms of creating a commission that would examine all of the different intersecting holistic issues that have affected our criminal justice system. We worked from our office. We got a buy-in from 100 different stakeholders across the country in supporting this, including also Supreme Court Justice Kennedy and the American Bar Association and the organizations all the way from the National Sheriff's Association, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, to the ACLU and the Marijuana Project. I think it's probably the only bill in the history of the Senate where the Marijuana Project and the National Sheriff's Association both were on it. We lost on the Senate floor. We got 57 votes. It was filibustered. But I also raised this issue with our president in 2011 after we lost on the Senate floor. And I suggested that for an 18-month commission for $14 million, he could put that in an executive order, and we could truly bring the best minds of America together to put together the right kind of solutions that will affect these kinds of things that the president is talking about. And I would say tonight, it's now been 9 years since we started working on this issue, and I would ask that the president consider taking one day, writing this executive order, getting this commission together, and let's really move forward to fix the whole criminal justice system, not just one piece of it or another. Of all the responsibilities of the president, none is greater than that of being your commander-in-chief. I've spent my entire life in and around the United States military. I grew up in the military. I served in Vietnam as a Marine. I spent 5 years in the Pentagon, 4 of them as an executive, sitting on the Defense Resources Board. I've served as a journalist around the world covering the United States military, including in Beirut in 1983 when the Marines were in Beirut. I was in Afghanistan as an embed journalist. I understand how our American military works. I understand foreign policy issues. And I will assure you, by the way, that if I were your president, I would have never urged an invasion of Iraq. And as a senator, I would have never voted to authorize that proposal. In fact, 5 months before the invasion, I wrote a piece in the Washington Post warning that this would be a disastrous strategic failure of historic proportions, that we do not belong as an occupying power in that part of the world, that would empower Iran, in the long run also China, particularly economically, and that it would unleash sectarian violence inside Iraq and turn our soldiers into terrorist targets. If I were your president, I would not have authorized the use of military force in Libya during what was called the Arab Spring. I warned repeatedly that the use of military force in Libya did not meet the test of a grave national security danger and that it would have negative impacts in the entire region. I would not, as president, sign any executive agreement establishing a long-term relationship with Iran if it in any way tips the balance of power in that vital region of our world. And particularly if it accepts Iran's acquisition of nuclear weapons. And I will say that again. I will never accept, directly or indirectly, Iran's acquisition of nuclear weapons. I'd make it clear that we have strong national security interests and that we need to address them. We've talked a lot about these other issues that everyone is in strong agreement with tonight. Let me speak just for a few minutes about my view of what the American dream really means. I call it the American trifecta. And what I mean by that is when our system works right, we have a safety net under people who need it, who've fallen into hard times or who have retired. We have absolute fairness in the middle. And then if you can truly make it, you can go all the way in this country, and that is the American dream. That is what I'm hoping for when I tell you that I would like to be your president. That is the vision that I have for this country, and I have been able to put that vision into specific actions in a way that I think I can guarantee you we will do if you will give us your support and help us in this journey. Thank you very much.
So there you hear some of what Jim Webb is all about. He is, I think anyway, the only presidential candidate on both sides with combat experience. I may be wrong about that, but I think he is. He was a Marine, and he served in Vietnam. We here at the Ray Warner Show thank him for his service. He's decorated. He's got 2 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star, and a Navy Cross. But unlike John Kerry, he didn't shoot himself in the foot or decorate himself or anything like that. I saw one report that said he was a Republican until about 9 years ago. I'm not sure what that's all about. I don't really know anything about this guy. He is a former senator for Virginia, a former assistant secretary of defense. He was secretary of the Navy under Ronald Reagan. This was back when he was a Republican. He has since crossed over to the Democrat side. Whenever they go that way, it reminds me of the whole Arlen Specter thing. You know, they cross from Republican to Democrat, and it's got some political purpose to it. In my opinion, Democrats, sometimes former Democrats, make the best Republicans, like Ronald Reagan. It makes sense to me to cross that way, you know, when you grow up. I don't understand crossing the other way, unless it's some political thing, but apparently he's done that. One part of the speech that stands out to me was when he talked about having a president that can articulate values of the Democrat Party and also work across the aisle to achieve bipartisan solutions. Well, he sort of stands alone on that. I mean, very few, if any, Democrats are at all interested in working with Republicans. They're too busy trashing Republicans to do that. Their idea of compromise is Boehner, you know, someone who will just totally cave whenever they want him to. So if he genuinely wants to do this, well, that's a first. He stands pretty much alone on the left as far as that goes. The Second Amendment, here is a statement I found from Jim Webb on the Second Amendment.
I am a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. that I have had a permit to carry a weapon in Virginia for a long time, and I believe that it's important. It's important for me personally and for a lot of people in the situation that I'm in to be able to defend myself and my family. Since 9/11, for people who are in government, I think in general there has been an agreement that it's a more dangerous time.
Not much there, really. All he did was talk about his right to carry a gun. He said he's a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, but who knows what that really means these days. Nancy Pelosi once said this.
We avow the First Amendment. We stand with that and say that people have a right to have a gun to protect themselves.
She said First Amendment, but that's just because she's a dingbat. But she's living proof that saying you avow the right to keep and bear arms doesn't mean you're strong on the Second Amendment. Now, he didn't say anything about the Islamic State or the Islamic threat in general in his speech. He did talk about Iran not getting a nuclear weapon and said he would not have signed this deal. But I did find an interview where he talked about how he would handle ISIS.
The long-term solution to the ISIS problem is going to have to come from the Sunni leadership in the region. In the interim period, we need to define specifically what our national security interests are and how we can bring that about. I don't think you're going to get there with us training these opposition forces in that way. It didn't work very well a few years ago before ISIS showed up. But in terms of our national security interests, I think you're seeing some impact.
There, he was being asked. He was being asked about the training program. We've spent about $500 million now training forces to fight the Islamic State. And I think there is a whopping 60 of them ready to go. I mean, that's no joke. 60 is how many we have trained. So he didn't really say much there. He talked about a solution coming from the Sunni leaders and said we need to identify our national security interests and work towards them. Well, I mean, duh. And I also found a soundbite that I offer as proof that Webb will never get the Democrat nomination. Here it is.
In a party that seems to thrill to Bernie Sanders and maybe long for Elizabeth Warren, who are the Jim Webb Democrats?
I believe we can bring a different tone to the Democratic Party. You're right. The party has moved way far to the left. And that's not my Democratic Party but in and of itself.
That was during an interview on Fox News with Bret Baier. And that's just going to anger the left. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's right about that. But he seems to be the only guy on the left that is somewhat reasonable. And that is not what the left is all about. Liberals are the most unreasonable people on the planet. And he's right. The Democrat Party has been hijacked by the fringe lunatic left. And I think it has slid left just as he sort of stood still. That's probably more what happened. And of course, that puts him closer to the new center of the parties. Not the center of the nation, that's different. The center of the nation is well to the right of the center of the parties. I've always thought, if you've ever heard people say America is a center-right country, I disagree. I mean, the center is center by definition. But the center of the country is to the right of the parties, the center of the parties. Even many Republicans, especially the establishment Republicans. But the left has just gone off the deep end. They are literally insane. And I mean literally insane in every sense of the word. You've got people out there on the left saying and doing things so insane that years ago you'd be locked up for it. The videos exposing Planned Parenthood demonstrate that rather well. There are people on the left trying to defend that. I mean, really, that's all you need to know to understand how insane the left is now. Jim Webb, he's a different kind of Democrat. He is far too rational for these kook fringe liberals. He's just not one of these rabid, militant lunatics. And for that reason, I predict he'll be rejected by the left. We'll be back, folks. Plenty more to come. John Kerry, the debate, how the FBI wants to handle Islamic militants. Plenty more to come. Stay right there.
There's plenty of free parking at the Ray Warner Show.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause. do you think the president's biggest accomplishment has been?
That's a great question. Can I get back to you?
Having an in-shape wife, I guess. That's about it.
Probably becoming the first African-American president.
So after he became president, he didn't accomplish anything else?
Well,
I guess one of us got confused.
Has Obama made change?
I don't know. I guess we haven't really heard too much about terrorism.
What about ISIS?
What's ISIS?
What do you think Obama's biggest accomplishment was?
are you asking this because I have blonde hair?
Like Osama.
The president won the Nobel Peace Prize. You think his greatest accomplishment is killing someone?
Nah.
Bringing our troops home, I'd have to say. I think the terrorists are pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
I'm personally a fan of healthcare. I think we should have universal healthcare.
How come he said the costs were going to go down and then they went up?
I'm not sure.
I don't think he is either.
We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Do you like any of the Republican presidential candidates?
Absolutely.
Who do you like?
I love them all.
Who's running?
Who isn't running?
I'm Democrat. I can tell. Ted.
Jeffrey?
Ted Mosby.
Still got it. I'm not a Ted Cruz guy.
He's a first-term senator running for president, so we all know how that turned out last time.
Yeah.
Are you a Tea Party person?
Love tea.
He reminds me too much of Ross Perot. I can't deal with that squeaky voice and pointy nose. I'm very shallow.
You're a superficial guy. What do you think about Jeb Bush?
I don't think about him at all.
I do like the Jeb. I'm an old Bush fan. I'm a Reagan kid.
I can't deal with another Bush-Clinton matchup. I don't know if the country's ready for that.
He's Bush's brother.
Then I probably don't like him. I didn't like Bush. I think he was an idiot.
Well, you seem to know what's going on. What do you guys think about Marco?
Polo.
Marco Rubio.
Never heard of him.
He's a Republican senator out of Florida.
I don't like him.
you never even heard anything.
I don't like him.
What about Scott Walker?
I'm just not sure I can trust somebody without a college education. Does that sound elitist of me?
You're an elitist snob.
Yeah, I figured that.
What state do you think he's from?
Texas.
Are you in a union?
No.
So you might like him.
Okay.
Chris.
Evans.
Chris Christie.
Oh, Christie.
Sometimes you need to be told to shut up.
Sit down and shut up.
Rand.
Owens?
Not Owens. Rand Paul.
Rand Paul, okay.
I like Rand Paul. Kind of get away from the status quo and the establishment.
He's kind of cute. In the scrubs? Yeah, I like that.
Kind of like his stance on drugs, kind of a libertarian view on that.
Are you baked right now?
Not yet.
I'm so wasted.
You ever watch Bill O'Reilly?
Bill O'Reilly is funny. I like him. He's a funny guy.
Funny looking.
He's a very awkward looking guy.
That's not nice.
I like Bill says what's on his mind, and he's not afraid to say it.
Did you ever watch Bill O'Reilly on Fox News Channel?
I watch a lot of cartoons, so no.
Did you guys ever watch Water's World?
I do.
So you know who I am?
Yeah. That's my favorite part of the show.
You have great taste.
Thanks.
She's incredible.
Waters. This is my world right here.
I don't know what that means.
You better check her meds and get them right.
Welcome back, folks. Thank you so much for listening. This is The Ray Warner Show, hosted by me, Ray Warner. If you want to email the show, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback, feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Did you watch the debates? And if you did, I'm sorry. And chances are you did. It was the most tuned into presidential primary debate ever. Something like 24 million people watched this thing. But if there was any pompous, arrogant self-absorption at all associated with these debates, that award would go to these people. How many times did we hear that sound on Thursday? Their big breaking Fox News alert story all day long. This is a Fox News alert. Our breaking story today, we will be hosting a debate tonight. That was their big story all day. I mean, these people were so full of themselves over at Fox News about this debate. Now, the presidential debate, if you even want to call it that, because, I don't know, to me it wasn't a debate. I've seen debates and that was not it. It was increasingly obvious as the night went on that there is an agenda, and that is to take Donald Trump out of this race. And I know the establishment GOP candidates want him out, but there has to be some other influence, some donor, some other big money person or something, because apparently powers that be over at Fox News want Trump out of this race. There were times I was extremely disappointed in Megyn Kelly, and I like Megyn Kelly. Normally she's very good, no nonsense, but there were times in that debate that I thought she was the most unprofessional she's been in her entire career. I mean, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And I don't know who they think they're trying to fool over there, but I mean, take out Trump was their mission. It was an assassination attempt. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever had to sit through. And it started right from the get-go with this stupid question.
Gentlemen, we know how much you love hand-raising questions. So we promise this is the only one tonight. The only one. Is there anyone on stage, and can I see hands, who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party and pledge to not run an independent campaign against that person? Again, we're looking for you to raise your hand now. Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump. So, Mr. Trump, to be clear, you're standing on a Republican primary debate.
I fully understand.
The place where the RNC will give the nominee the nod.
I fully understand.
And that experts say an independent run would almost certainly hand the race over to Democrats and likely another Clinton. You can't say tonight that you can make that pledge.
I cannot say. I have to respect the person that if it's not me, the person that wins. If I do win and I'm leading by quite a bit, that's what I want to do. I can totally make that pledge. If I'm the nominee, I will pledge I will not run as an independent. But and I am discussing it with everybody, but I'm talking about a lot of leverage. We want to win, and we will win. But I want to win as the Republican. I want to run as the Republican nominee.
So tonight you can't say if another one of these...
This is what's wrong. I mean, This is what's wrong. He buys and sells politicians of all stripes. He's already...
Dr. Paul.
Hey, look, he's already hedging his bet on the Clintons, okay? So if he doesn't run as a Republican, maybe he supports Clinton or maybe runs as an independent.
Okay.
But I'd say that he's already hedging his bets because he's used to buying politicians.
Well, I've given him plenty of money.
Just to be clear, you can't make it. We're going to move on. You're not going to make the pledge tonight.
I will not make the pledge at this time.
Okay. All right.
That's what.
Did you hear the crowd reaction to the very asking of this question? Not to Trump's answer. There was more cheering when he finished. The asking of the question brought boos from the crowd. Now, let me explain to you why this question was so stupid. Donald Trump is the only candidate in this race that has taken this position, and he's done so publicly. Anybody paying attention could have predicted how that question was going to be answered pretty much across the board. So ask yourself this question. Did you learn anything that you already didn't know as a result of that question? In a debate with 10 participants, and time is precious, would you burn the clock with a question to which everyone already knows the answer? And then Rand Paul was allowed to monologue about Trump's answer. And Rand Paul, I'll tell you what, Rand Paul was so hot-headed pretty much all night. Chris Christie embarrassed him. Donald Trump embarrassed him. He just didn't have a good night. I think the question needs to be asked of Rand Paul. With his quick temper and obvious anger issues, is he fit to serve as president? I mean, do Americans want to see a lamp flying out through the glass of a White House window on the evening news? So anyway, this is how they chose to start the debate, with a question designed to single out Trump, put him on edge right from the get-go. And if there was a theme for the evening, it was keeping Donald Trump in the crosshairs. I want to play a montage here. These were all of the questions in order, the order that they were asked, of Marco Rubio. Not his answers, just the questions.
Senator Rubio, when Jeb Bush announced his candidacy for presidency, he said this: there's no passing off responsibility when you're a governor, no blending into the legislative crowd. Could you please address Governor Bush across the stage here and explain to him why you, someone who has never held executive office, are better prepared to be president than he is, a man who you say did a great job running your state of Florida for 8 years. Senator Rubio, let me see if I can do better with you. Is it as simple as our leaders are stupid, their leaders are smart, and all of these illegals coming over are criminals?
Senator Rubio, why is Governor Bush wrong on Common Core?
Senator Rubio, more than 3,000 people sent us questions about the economy and jobs on Facebook, and here is a video question from Tanya Sialko from Philadelphia. Here she is.
Please describe one action you would do to make the economic environment more favorable for small businesses and entrepreneurs and anyone dreaming of opening their own business.
That's a great question. Senator, how do you answer Tanya?
Senator Rubio, I want to ask you the same question, but I do want to mention a woman just came here to the stage and asked, what about the veterans? I want to hear more about what these candidates are going to do for our nation's veterans. So I put the question to you about God and the veterans, which you may find to be related.
Okay, so those were the questions Marco Rubio was asked. Now for the other montage, and this one's a bit longer. The moderators took up like 36 minutes of time with their lengthy questions. That was another problem I had. In a debate where time is precious, I mean, they should just be quick and let the candidates have more time to answer and explain their positions and their ideas, I think, anyway. But again, Fox News just made this more about themselves than they did about the debate or the presidential race. Anyway, here are all the questions they asked Donald Trump, in order. Now remember, the first thing was the hand raise question, okay, which already set him on edge. Then the very next thing was a woman, Megyn Kelly, going after him. Listen to this.
Mr. Trump, one of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account...
Thank you.
For the record, it was on Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
Mr. Trump, it has not escaped anybody's notice that you say that the Mexican government is sending criminals, rapists, drug dealers across the border. Governor Bush has called those remarks, quote, extraordinarily ugly. I'd like you're right next to him, talk to him directly and say how you respond to that. And you have repeatedly said that you have evidence that the Mexican government is doing this, but that you have evidence you have refused or declined to share. Why not use this first Republican presidential debate to share your proof with the American people? Mr. Trump, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds to answer my question, which was, what evidence do you have, specific evidence, that the Mexican government is sending criminals across the border? 30 seconds.
Mr. Trump, Obamacare is one of the things you call a disaster.
Complete disaster, yes.
Saying it needs to be repealed and replaced.
Correct.
Now, 15 years ago, you called yourself a liberal on health care. You were for a single-payer system, a Canadian-style system. Why were you for that then, and why aren't you for it now? Mr. Trump, it's not just your past support for single-payer health care. You've also supported a host of other liberal policies. You've also donated to several Democratic candidates, Hillary Clinton included, Nancy Pelosi. You explained away those donations, saying you did that to get business-related favors. And you said recently, quote, "When you give, they do whatever the hell you want them to do."
You better believe it.
So what specifically did they do? So what'd you get from Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi?
Mr. Trump, you talked a lot about how you are the person on this stage to grow the economy. I want to ask you about your business record. Trump corporations, casinos and hotels have declared bankruptcy 4 times over the last quarter century. In 2011, you told Forbes magazine this: "I've used the laws of the country to my advantage." But at the same time, financial experts involved in those bankruptcies say that lenders to your companies lost billions of dollars. Question, sir, with that record, why should we trust you to run the nation's business? Well, sir, let's just talk about the latest example, which is Trump Entertainment Resorts, which went bankrupt in 2009. In that case alone, lenders to your company lost over $1 billion and more than 1,100 people were laid off.
Well,
is that the way that you run the country?
Mr. Trump, in 1999, you said you were, quote, very pro-choice, even supporting partial birth abortion. You favored an assault weapons ban as well. In 2004, you said in most cases you identified as a Democrat. Even in this campaign, your critics say you often sound more like a Democrat than a Republican, calling several of your opponents on this stage things like clowns and puppets. When did you actually become a Republican?
General Qasem Soleimani. He's blamed for hundreds of U.S. troop deaths in Iraq and Afghanistan. His trip to Russia appears to directly violate UN Security Council resolutions to confine him to Iran. So, Mr. Trump, if you were president, how would you respond to this?
Can you hear the clear difference in how those two candidates were treated? And that was pretty much, everybody. Trump was asked nothing but personal questions, nothing on the economy, nothing on trade, nothing on the Islamic threat, nothing that matters. The last question was the only one remotely close to something that matters. It was about the Iranian who traveled to Russia when Obama's little arrangement says he is not supposed to leave the country. So basically asking Trump what he would do if and when Iran breaks Obama's deal. That was it. The rest was pure crap. Just personal questions. And, and Donald Trump is not politically correct, which in my opinion is why he's so popular. He's been on TV. He's had his own show. He's almost 70 years old. He's been a well-known celebrity for like 30 or 40 some odd years. And he goes way back to a time in America when you could kid around with somebody and it just didn't occur to people to be offended. So, what do they do at Fox News? They pull up anything and everything that makes him look bad and throw it at him. And they would say this stuff matters too. They would say that the liberal media is going to throw it at him and he needs to, answer these now. Well, okay, let CNN or some other mock news agency ask the dumb questions. Fox News is where America turns for real news on real issues, not this tabloid crap. And before I get inundated with more email about how I'm supporting Trump, I want you to know I don't support any candidate publicly. I participate in the Breitbart polling on these candidates. And just so you know, I vote once a month and they give you 3 choices. Donald Trump is not my first choice. Donald Trump is not my second choice. Donald Trump is not my third choice. I'm not endorsing Trump or any other candidate. I just end up constantly defending him because of the way he's being treated. By our side, mostly. Now, I'm glad that there was about, 60 or so feet of stage in between Chris Christie and Rand Paul. I mean, if these guys had been standing podium to podium next to each other, this may have come to blows. This is what is known as an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object.
I'm the only person on this stage who's actually filed applications under the Patriot Act, who have gone before the federal, the Foreign Intelligence Service Court, who has prosecuted and investigated and jailed terrorists in this country after September 11th. I was appointed U.S. Attorney by President Bush on September 10th, 2001, and the world changed enormously the next day. And it happened in my state. This is not theoretical to me. I went to the funerals. We lost friends of ours in the Trade Center that day. My own wife was 2 blocks from the Trade Center that day at her office, having gone through it that morning. When you actually have to be responsible for doing this, you can do it, and we did it for 7 years in my office, respecting civil liberties and protecting the homeland. And I will make no apologies ever for protecting the lives and the safety of the American people. We have to give more tools to our folks to be able to do that, not fewer, and then trust those people and oversee them to do it the right way. As president, that is exactly what I'll do.
Megan, may I respond?
Go ahead, sir.
I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from innocent Americans. The Fourth Amendment was what we fought the revolution over. John Adams said it was the spark that led to our war for independence. And I'm proud of standing for the Bill of Rights, and I will continue to stand for the Bill of Rights.
And Megan, that's a completely ridiculous answer. I want to collect more records from terrorists, but less records from other people. How are you supposed to know, Megan?
Use the Fourth
What are you supposed
Amendment.
to? How are you supposed
Use
to?
the Fourth
No, I'll tell you
Amendment.
how you
Get a warrant.
Let me tell you something.
Get
you go
a judge to sign
when
a
you,
warrant.
Senator.
Go ahead, wait, Governor Christie, make your point.
Listen, Senator, when you're sitting in a subcommittee just blowing hot air about this, you can say things like that. When you're responsible for protecting the lives of the American people, then what you need to do is to make sure that you use the system the way it's supposed to work.
Here's the problem, Governor. You fundamentally misunderstand the Bill of Rights. Every time you did a case, you got a warrant from a judge. I'm talking about searches without warrants, indiscriminately of all Americans' records, and that's what I fought to end. I don't trust President Obama with our records. I know you gave him a big hug, and if you want to give him a big hug again, go right ahead.
Go ahead, Governor.
And Senator Paul, the hugs that I remember are the hugs that I gave to the families who lost their people on September 11th. Those are the hugs I remember, and those had nothing to do with politics, unlike what you're doing by cutting speeches on the floor of the Senate, then putting them on the internet within a half an hour to raise money for your campaign, and while still putting our country at risk.
All right, we're going to cut it off there.
That was Christie and Paul on either side of a freedom versus security argument, and having it out with all of the class of a tastes great, less spilling shouting match. I seriously was waiting for Rand Paul to blow an artery in his forehead. I mean, he was so spitting mad and turning red. Did you see the photo of Rand Paul, by the way? He tweeted a photo of himself saying something about having a good meal before the debate. He's either at a restaurant or some banquet, some dinner somewhere. I don't know. There were other tables there. And whatever it was that he was eating, it was just drowning in this creamy white sauce. Ted Cruz was to Rand Paul's right on the debate stage. He probably got an earful of that sauce. Rand Paul was just so spitting mad. And on the other side, it was Marco Rubio, I'm sure getting pelted with Chris Christie's beer and pizza shrapnel. Now, as I said, I have never seen Megyn Kelly so unprofessional. To pull the stunt she did with Trump, digging up whatever she can find, and the whole war on women thing, just whatever she can find to make him look bad. And then saying this to Senator Cruz.
Senator Cruz, let's start from you. Any word from God?
Now, maybe she just thought she was being cute, I don't know, pithy, but it kind of sounded to me like that libtard journalist, I can't remember his name, but he was I did a quick report on it or talked about it in the show a month or so ago, or maybe even longer. But he was asking Senator Cruz, what's your favorite Cuban food and your favorite dish? What's your favorite Cuban music artist? Speak us some Spanish, boy. Perform for us. It was just the way that it came off. Senator Cruz, you got any word from God? I mean, she was asking a submitted question from, I think, Facebook, The person wanted to know if any of the candidates had received inspiration from God about what they should do first if they're elected, or something to that effect. I may have it misworded. But to say, Cruz, have you heard from God? And Cruz, the class act that he is, of course, says he receives his word from God through Scripture. Perfect answer, in my opinion. But like I said, I just thought Megyn Kelly, I don't know what she was doing. I just thought she was so unprofessional during this debate. This was not her at her best. And who won the debate? Who do you think won the debate? I want to hear from you. If you believe the media, which I don't, by default I don't, it was Carly Fiorina in the pregame show and Marco Rubio in the upper tier. I've also seen media talking about John Kasich. In my opinion, the winner was Ted Cruz.
You have a toxic relationship with GOP leaders in Congress. You even called the Republican Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, a liar recently. How can you win in 2016 when you're such a divisive figure?
Chris, I believe the American people are looking for someone to speak the truth. If you're looking for someone to go to Washington, to go along, to get along, to agree with the career politicians in both parties who get in bed with the lobbyists and special interests, then I ain't your guy. There is a reason that we have $18 trillion in debt. Because as conservatives, as Republicans, we keep winning elections. We got a Republican House, we got a Republican Senate, and we don't have leaders who honor their commitments. I will always tell the truth and do what I said I would do.
It just doesn't get much better than that. Senator Cruz is not in it to attack. He's not calling his fellow candidates out. He's just being straightforward, honest, and in my opinion, he's the most principled man on that stage. Right behind him would be Dr. Ben Carson. I also think he did very well in this debate. Another one who surprised me was Mike Huckabee. I just thought he did well. He did better than I thought he would anyway. On Drudge, Donald Trump was the big winner. I don't know if you can call it a win. I wouldn't say Trump won the debate. I would say he more or less survived the debate. There is no doubt in my mind that Fox News was just gunning for Trump to take him out. And as usual, he survived. That's what Trump does best. He's a survivor. Sit tight, folks. We'll be right back.
Warning, warning. The Ray Warner Show is not approved by the Obama administration.
Turn right. You have reached your destination.
I feel like every day we are losing more and more of our freedom.
Can you believe American businesses are fleeing American oppression and seeking opportunity in foreign countries?
Our country is against the ropes.
We need to rise up. We need to speak out.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
The people need to understand.
We're losing our country.
That's why I listen to the Ray Warner Show.
America is a nation people climb walls to get into, not climb walls to escape.
There's nothing he won't say on the air. I like that.
Obama has got to be the worst leader of any organization the world has ever seen. Whoever is feeding Harry Reid his peas, please tell him that's not how our government is supposed to work.
It's like he says what I'm thinking.
What part of spending bills originate in the House is confusing you?
Saying what needs to be said.
This year's migration to the border was different than in past years.
This year's migration? Like they're a flock of geese and they're going to go back? When the season's over?
The public needs to be educated.
We have the emails. The emails that show global warming is a fraud. We have the proof that they conspire to cover up the truth.
Always speaking the truth.
No government entity can change the definition of God-ordained marriage. It's not a possibility. They can believe they have changed it, but they cannot change that any more than they can change gravity.
Real-time analysis.
So I guess Pelosi was wrong. We don't need to pass the bill and find out what's in it because it doesn't matter what's in it. It's just going to be interpreted however we want, willy-nilly, to mean whatever on any given day.
Keeping it real.
Zealots who randomly shoot a bunch of folks in a deli.
Well, that was just random. Who knew? I mean, who knew the Islamic nutjobs would find Jews in a kosher deli? But those were just random people. They were just in the wrong random place at the wrong random time.
He holds nothing back.
Liberals, take your brain for a test drive.
Every day on The Ray Warner Show.
Hey, ISIS. Welcome to Texas.
You're listening to The Ray Warner Show. Resistance is futile.
Jesus Christ is the only source of freedom that lasts. Freedom isn't found in a program or in a set of steps. It isn't found in a facility or in a friendship. It is found only in a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. God wants you to experience freedom from the bondage of your life-dominating sins, your stubborn habits, and your addictions. That freedom comes through a very specific path that is designed to give you an extreme makeover. This is why we say, you do what you do because you are what you are. To change what you do, you must cooperate with God to change what you are. The Freedom That Lasts program will introduce you to the Bible truths that will teach you how to cooperate with God to change what you are.
Welcome back. Thank you so much once again for listening. This is The Ray Warner Show. I am your host, Ray Warner. If you want to email the show, if you have any questions for me, any comments, any concerns, or any feedback for me or the show, you feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Now, I've got a story here that was submitted by a listener, and this is rich. This is priceless. I love this. This is right up there with Marie Harf wanting to start her jobs program in the Middle East to stop the Islamic State in their tracks. The FBI, this is from, hold on a second. This is from Liberty Unyielding, libertyunyielding.com. The FBI is now referring some potential terrorist suspects for psychological counseling as part of a new touchy-feely strategy to defeat homegrown Islamic State supporters. Rather than lock up everyone in the U.S. suspected of potential terrorist activity, the FBI will direct up to 10% of the thousands of people under investigation to the shrink's couch, where they can rehash the indignities of their childhoods that led them to seek retribution by opening fire on crowds of innocents or blowing up jetliners. Proponents of the plan say it will ease the FBI's investigative burden and provide a possible off-ramp from radicalization for some of the thousands of people in the U.S. interested in joining ISIS, especially minors. So, Islamic nut jobs out there, if you're caught, cry. Just cry. Just cry and say, my mama never gave me ice cream. My daddy never took me to ball game. You'll get counseling. You will, over time, be pronounced well, and off you go, laughing all the way to your next target of your next Islamic attack. I'll tell you, folks, we are not only going down in this country, and going down in a big way, but we are like picking up speed. It's just incredible. Now, if you listen to the Quick Reports, and you should, then you've heard me talk about Kerry defending the Iran deal. But I thought this was an interesting question put forth by Brad Sherman to Secretary Kerry.
You strongly do not want us to override a presidential veto. But if we do, that triggers certain American laws. I'd like to give you an opportunity, you don't know us to do it, you think it's terrible policy, you think the rest of the world would be against us. But let's say Congress doesn't take your advice. We override a veto. And the law that's triggered then imposes certain sanctions. Will you follow the law even though you think it violates this agreement clearly, and even if you think it's absolutely terrible policy?
I can't begin to answer that at this point without consulting with the president and determining what the circumstances are.
He'll have to consult with the president? He can't answer on his own whether or not he'll follow the law? You would think any law-abiding citizen would answer that simple question, will you follow the law, with a resounding yes. I mean, how far off is Kerry's moral compass that even he himself, doesn't know if he'll follow the law? This is where we are, folks. This is where Obama's lawlessness, his example of absolute lawlessness, has brought this nation. Are we going to follow the law? I don't know. I don't know if we're going to follow. It's just unbelievable to me. And he can sit there and say that, with a straight face into a microphone, knowing there's people listening. Will you follow the law? I don't know. I need to consult with the president. Well, after I do, then maybe I'll know if I'll follow the law. I mean, I don't understand how these people look themselves in the mirror. Now, also you heard in some quick reports that John Kerry went to the Middle East recently to try to calm everybody's nerves over there about the nuclear arms race in that region, spawned by Obama and his deal, and currently underway. Well, I played a few sound bites of Democrats that are not on board with this little arrangement. Obama and Kerry don't even have the full support of their own Democrat party. Well, get this. Not only is there Democrat opposition, Chuck Schumer is against it. Oh yeah. He said in a statement, and I quote, "Advocates on both sides have strong cases for their point of view that cannot simply be dismissed. This has made evaluating the agreement a difficult and deliberate endeavor, and after deep study, careful thought, and considerable soul-searching, I have decided I must oppose the agreement and will vote yes on a motion of disapproval," unquote. Chuck Schumer, ladies and gentlemen. How wrong do you have to be for a live cartoon like Chuck Schumer to call you out? Now, Obama was also trying to sell his deal this week in a lengthy speech, and he had this to say about his deal.
So this deal is not just the best choice among alternatives. This is the strongest non-proliferation agreement ever negotiated.
I honestly just don't know what to say about that. I've gone over this before. I can't believe this clown would compare his little arrangement with Iran to arms treaties negotiated by President Ronald Reagan with the Soviet Union. Nuclear arms treaties, or Nixon in the Soviet Union. Or if you want a Democrat, how about John F. Kennedy dealing with the Cuban Missile Crisis? Obama's little arrangement, which guarantees Iran a nuclear weapon, is a joke compared to those of previous presidents. He says it's the best ever. I mean, laughter doesn't cover it. This has to be one of the stupidest arrangements any president has made. And as usual, Obama, he just doesn't get the joke. I've been saying all along, he's on their side. What more proof do you need that Obama wants Iran to have a bomb? What more could he do to convince you of that? If he flat out announced, I want Iran to have the bomb, what would he do differently about this deal to achieve that? What would be different? And why is it so important for Obama to have the support of Congress? I mean, all of a sudden. Since when does he care what Congress wants, or the law, or the Constitution, or whatever? He already sent his little arrangement to the UN. He got a unanimous decision over there. Over here, he's doing whatever he wants. Amnesty, no problem. He goes off to Oklahoma, just opens up some prison doors, lets people out. He refuses to deal with Planned Parenthood the way he should. And I'm sick of calls for defunding Planned Parenthood, by the way. I don't want to hear that anymore. We should be so far past defunding them by now. I don't want to hear about defunding Planned Parenthood. I want to hear about indicting some of these people. That's what we need to be talking about. So why suddenly is it so important that Barack I get the approval of Congress? And I'll tell you why. Rush Limbaugh says it's for his legacy. I heard that at some point this week. I disagree with Rush on this. I mean, maybe there is that, but I think Obama is pushing for it because, number one, he knows that in the end he'll get it. We have Mitch McConnell, who pushed Obama's fast-track trade authority through the Senate. And we have Boehner, completely spineless John Boehner, being held up by nothing more than the starch in his shirt. He's going to burn himself. Boehner is a rubber stamp for Obama. So what's going to happen? In the end, Obama will get what he wants, and that will piss off the Republican base. And he'll keep doing things like this, and the idiots in the Republican establishment will keep going along with it, and the base won't turn out for the election in 2016. Add to that all of the illegal aliens that will undoubtedly be allowed to vote by then, and there you have it. Can anyone say President Hillary Clinton? That's why he wants Congress to do it. He wants their support to piss off Republican voters, and they will. You'll see. It'll happen. It's all going to happen. Obama also had this to say about his opposition.
Just because Iranian hardliners chant death to America does not mean that that's what all Iranians believe. In fact, it's those...
Hold on, stop it. Stop the soundbite. There was applause over that line. Just because hardliners chant death to America doesn't mean that's what all Iranians believe. Who applauds that? And why? Unbelievable. That right there should tell you what kind of fawning sycophants they pile into these places whenever Obama is talking. No wonder he thinks the whole world agrees with him. Okay, roll it. Go ahead.
In fact, it's those hardliners who are most comfortable with the status quo. It's those hardliners chanting death to America who've been most opposed to the deal. They're making common cause with the Republican caucus.
The hardliners chanting death to America have a common cause with Republicans. Well, Mr. President, what in Sam Hill is that cause? What common cause do Republicans have with hardliners in Iran chanting death to America? I mean, that's over the top, even for him. If you were to pin him down and ask him what that cause is, what would he say? That they're against the deal? Is that what he would say? I mean, that's what he's talking about. He's saying it in the context of Congress accepting his little arrangement. And who in Iran is against this deal? They love this little arrangement. They got everything they wanted, and they gave up nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're not against the deal. Republicans are against the deal. That's not common. They don't have a common cause. They have different causes. And many Democrats are against it, I might add. Do they have a common cause with the hardliners chanting death to America? I just read to you Chuck Schumer's statement. He's against the deal. So Chuck Schumer has a common cause with hardliners in Iran chanting death to America? But on top of that, he did say it's the hardliners that oppose the deal. Oh, you mean like the Ayatollah? Is he one of the hardliners that opposes the... He was leading the chant, death to America. Is he opposed to the deal that he himself agreed to? Is that what it is? I swear, folks, sometimes it's like shooting fish in a barrel with this dolt. And that's it for this week, folks. Thank you so much again for listening in today. Don't forget, if you want to email me, if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, any problems with something I've said, you want to correct the record or just tell me to shut up, you feel free. The email address is theraywarnershow@gmail.com. Make sure you go check out the opinion page. I post lots of great articles there that get submitted. If you feel passionate about something, you want to write about it, doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, you go ahead and send it to me. I will post it there. While you're at the website, make sure you visit the shop. Pick up all your Ray Warner Show gear stuff, your mugs, your t-shirts, lots of other fun stuff. And also consider a donation to help keep the Ray Warner Show alive and fighting for conservative values. And I want to thank all of those who have donated to this point. It is very, very appreciated. And don't forget, I don't know how you listen to the Ray Warner Show and the Ray Warner Quick Reports, but there are many ways you can listen. If you go to theraywarnershow.com, you can subscribe and get a link in your email. You can also subscribe at the Ray Warner Show YouTube channel. You'll be notified of every show there. Every show and Quick Report is posted on the Facebook and on the Twitter. You can also get the show and subscribe at iTunes. You can download from iTunes and you'll have it on the go. You can download the show from theraywarnershow.com. However you listen, I am so thankful that you do, and we will see you next week, folks. So long.